Yeah.
Boom, and we're live. Good to go. Alrighty,
Awesome.
tighty. Out here today, got Sith Citadel in here. This is our first time ever speaking in person, which is tight. I've been in his chat, he's been in my chat, but today we're gonna be talking some Star Wars. Having a jolly old time, having a grand old time.
For sure.
So, big question: how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good now that we got the streams cooking up, just got the
Yeah.
streams rolling.
Thanks for the help.
For
Thanks for the
sure.
help. It only 45 minutes for me to figure these things out. So, yeah.
It happens. Essentially just here to talk some Star Wars, hang out. We can go for however long that you want, but the thing that I'll open up with to get the discussion rolling is I believe that Princess Leia might be the greatest supporting character of all time.
Sure. Yeah. I cannot argue that.
And she doesn't just support in the sense of a typical supporting character either. It's more so she adds depth to the story that's going on. In hindsight, just because you don't learn that she's Luke's sister until episode 6.
Right.
But if you had to say, what's your favorite Star Wars stuff, your favorite movie, your favorite characters, who, what, where, when, and why?
So I gotta say the prequels. Getting into Star Wars, for me at least, was a little untraditional in the sense that my first Star Wars movie was actually The Force Awakens. Well,
Okay.
That's not true. I started watching Star Wars with my dad when I was like 7. He had me watching The Phantom Menace, and I just couldn't really get into it because just before that, he had briefly tried to sit me down for A New Hope when I was like 6 or 7-ish, and couldn't really get into it either until later when I saw The Force Awakens, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I could go for this, I guess. But it was like, this is Star Wars that people were so hyped about or whatever. But it wasn't really until I decided I wanted to watch Revenge of the Sith where I'm like, okay, this is Star Wars. That's dope. And then that was when I just went 1 through 6 and then watched the sequels as they came out.
Nice.
And so my favorite Star Wars has got to be the prequels, because as someone who grew up around that time, it just kind of hit more home for me, and they felt more genuine than what Disney came out with. At first, I saw a lot of like lightsabers and shooting and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But then when I saw like George Lucas Star Wars, that's really what brought me in.
Yeah.
Not much Disney. What about you?
I'm a Star Wars lifer. Been watching it literally my whole life, and my very first memory of Star Wars, getting into it, was, I want to say, a Qui-Gon Jinn, a little Hasbro lightsaber. And as soon as I got that, I was pretty sold instantly. Like I was pretty sold. I had a family that loved it. My dad was a huge Star Wars fan, and he took us to see Attack of the Clones when that came out in theaters, and that was my first Star Wars that I saw in theaters. And subsequently, I went and saw every Star Wars film that's ever came out after that in theaters, which has been a very fun time. I've seen every Star Wars film multiple times in theaters, which I'm very proud of. It's been...
I wish I could have.
Yeah, it's been a really fun time with Star Wars. And between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens, there was a 10-year gap where I really wasn't following it, because there was really nothing going on. And then Disney buys it, and you hear all this stuff about a Disney streaming service that's going to be hitting soon, and that's when things started to escalate for me as a Star Wars fan, because once once Disney Plus came out and the sequel trilogy had already just hit, like, I was already buzzing because, oh, now I can watch Clone Wars, some that I've heard about, you know, but I've never read into personally. And I get to see Clone Wars, I get to watch Rebels, I get to watch all the Star Wars movies at the touch of a button, which for me, I would probably say it was the most impactful thing, because with lockdown, with everything, like, I really started to get into it. And then it wasn't until last October, or probably last July, I'm sitting down and I'm starting the preliminaries for a Star Wars novel, that then I'm like, okay, now I'm really going to get into this, because if I want to do justice by these characters, if I want to do justice to George Lucas's creations, I need to know the ins and outs of these characters that I'm writing. And that's the only way that I can really honor the legacy of these characters. And I'm writing a book right now about Ben Solo at Luke Skywalker's temple, and basically the story of what happens with their relationship from the end of episode 6 to what happens at the start of episode 7. And it's taken me, yeah, it's taken me about a year to iron out the story. And I'm 30 odd pages deep. I'm starting chapter 2. So things are moving.
I'm curious.
Things are moving with it.
I'm curious then. So are you going to be writing it with like certain retcons to the sequels, or are you trying to tie it in like directly? Like, what were your thoughts on the sequels?
I liked them for what they were. I wish that, well, to answer your question, first off, I'm writing it to make sense of everything that happens.
Yeah,
I've never been a fan of retconning things, because what's done is done. And it's never, the big question that I always hear was, well, Luke Skywalker wouldn't do this. He wouldn't seclude himself. He wouldn't make himself a hermit. But he did do that thing. So why did he do it? Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to answer with my book. Essentially, I'm trying to take Rian Johnson's piece of garbage and turn it into someone's treasure, because in my opinion, Rian Johnson ruined the sequels. And everyone always says, oh, he had the most visually appealing movie ever. How many movies are visually appealing? Yeah, and it's like,
that's why I got into The Force Awakens. I mean, honestly, like, I got into The Force Awakens because it was a visually appealing movie. And since I didn't know what was going on, I didn't know any better to think, like, you know, this is good, this is bad, this is due to the characters. I just knew, you know, lots of pew-pew, lightsabers, yay, and it was like, this is dope, I guess. Then I saw George Lucas Star Wars, and like, this is Star Wars. Also, we have Zam in the chat. What's up?
What up, Zam? I loved The Force Awakens. I loved it for what it was. For an episode 1 of a brand new trilogy, it did everything that I think it possibly could have to establish who these characters are, where they're at, why they're doing what they're doing. And it's just, it was the perfect alley-oop. And then Rian Johnson came in, and instead of dunking it, because I feel like his job in The Last Jedi was the easiest job of any of the writers that had to do with the sequels, because it's not like he had to create characters, right?
No, all he had to do was continue the story.
That's all he had to do.
All you had to do.
Instead, he forced his own agendas, he forced his own opinions into it, and I think by the time anyone realized it, they were just too far deep into the story that they couldn't really pull out at that point. And of course, it's like, art is interpretational. So at the end of episode 7, you see Rey handing the lightsaber to Luke, where 95% of the population think that Luke's going to take that lightsaber and train Rey, Rian Johnson was part of the 5% of shit posters that think that Luke's going to grab it and throw it over his back. And that in and of itself, like, you change that one little thing, you change that one little tighting, you get rid of all the BS that happens between Rey chasing Luke down, watching him go about his daily routines, watching him go fishing, watching him drink the green milk. You cut all that out and you just have Luke train Rey. You have him explain why he came here, what he's doing here, the reasoning behind it. You save a movie. And for whatever reason, he just didn't have the clairvoyance to see that. But I just think he was being selfish and he wanted to tell his story, his interpretations. And you can tell he's not a Star Wars fan. He's not a Star Wars guy because of the way that he took these characters, altered them. And like, people say Luke was bad. Leia was not Leia in The Last Jedi at all.
Oh, for sure.
She was stubborn. She wasn't taking risks. She was playing it safe. And
Hold a full on Mary Poppins.
when did Leia ever play it safe the entirety of the original trilogy? If you play it safe, you don't beat the Empire. So
Yeah. So I'd take it a step further, actually, and challenge everything you just said with one simple thing. Yes, Rian Johnson did a very good job at screwing up basically everything to do with The Last Jedi. But I would also argue the sequels were already screwed when Luke wasn't in the first one until the very end. Because even though that's the one that I entered in with, and I'm like, okay, this is cool and all, after I had gone back and watched 1 through 6 and everything, if 40 years had gone by and people were hoping to see like Han, Luke, and Leia, I don't think, like, if you're going to tear down a legendary character, which again, I'm not for tearing down legendary characters, but if you're going to tear down a legendary character, I don't think Luke was the right choice for that. I think, if anything, he was the main guy that you would expect to be like at the top of his game, like legendary Jedi Master Luke Skywalker versus, you know, if you're gonna tear down a legendary character, tear down a different one.
yeah, and that's fair. I enjoyed the search for Luke Skywalker because it needed to, like, there needed to be a goal that was big enough to carry itself throughout the movie. And of course, the Resistance, their entire goal was, we need to track down and find Luke Skywalker. And
I guess
it
when you look at the
did
goal of
its
the audience,
job.
it just got Star Wars back.
Yeah, and I get what you mean. It did its job, but it could have been different. The issue is, in hindsight, it doesn't seem worth it because of how Luke is then introduced to us in 8 and the remainder of his story. If Luke goes on to, I don't want to make a fan fiction right now, but if Luke goes on to do anything but what happened, if he actually gets his heroic send-off, if he gets his heroic, realistic send-off, I think we're having a different discussion about it. But the issue is, hindsight's 2020. We know what happens with it. It's obviously a huge letdown for sure. So I can't disagree with you.
That's fair.
But in a vacuum, not knowing what happens in episode 8 and 9, I think it was justifiable to write 7 how it was written, because it established everything that you need going forward. It tells you who the main character is, and I have the unpopular opinion that the main character of the sequels is Kylo Ren, and it
should have been, honestly.
Well, in my eyes, it is. And if you view it with that perspective, oftentimes it's a much more enjoyable experience. Rey is simply there to drive Kylo's story home, but it ultimately is Kylo's story, because look at all the tragedies that happen in the movie. In the first movie, his father dies. In the 8th movie, his master dies and everything around him falls apart. In the 9th movie, his mother dies and he has to make the ultimate sacrifice. Like, nothing's happening to Rey. Everything is happening to Kylo. And the audience sees everything happening to Kylo. And that's why he's such a enjoyable yet sympathetic villain in my eyes, because Kylo is really there to shed that armor that he's put himself into and become himself again, because he never wanted to be Kylo Ren. He just didn't want to be Ben Solo, you know? So he was just lost for a bit. And that's why, again, he's part of this book that I'm writing, because he really is the most important character of the sequels, yet we don't know that much about him.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a lot of lore to him quite yet. He's in a couple books. He's in a couple comics. That's really about it. But we don't know his motivations. We don't know his inner thoughts and feelings. We don't know his insecurities. With Luke, with Anakin, like, we watch them grow up in front of our eyes. With Kylo, they plop him in his prime right in front of us, where we don't have that time to let him nurture and mature, so we can see, like, Anakin. We saw Anakin's fear of loss. We saw Luke's fear of loss. With Kylo's opposite, where he didn't fear loss, he feared being alone. And that's why I don't know why they made the decision for him to kill his own father, because that isn't who Kylo Ren is. But they made him do it to drive home the point that the dark side has this kid by the balls and is just absolutely corrupting what really is a good kid in Ben Solo. So that, I thought, was really, really good storytelling outwardly of just how manipulative the Force is in Star Wars.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. To be perfectly honest, I haven't seen Rise since it came out in theaters, because that's kind of where I was with Rise. I didn't really want to watch it again, so I don't really remember much as far as the character goes in that movie. I remember a lot from Force Awakens and Last Jedi, but Rise I might be a little rusty on, because I haven't seen it since 2019 when it came out.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I know a lot of people, my buddy MJ hasn't even seen it, and I think he left. What up, Jack? We got Jack in the chat. My buddy MJ left the theaters early while watching Rise because he didn't like it. Whereas I really liked it. I thought it was a solid flick. I really thought it was a solid flick. It wasn't great, but for what it was, for what it had to follow, like, and my friends say the same thing, like, if you're making a Star Wars movie to simply do the job, like, are you really doing it justice? No, but to have to follow The Last Jedi, like, I give it a pass. I really do give it a pass.
Yeah, but with Palpatine, though?
They kind of shoehorned themselves. And I wouldn't have gone Palpatine. I would have made her Kenobi. Even the love child of Luke and Leia would have been better. But
I was talking about, like, how Palpatine went out.
Yeah, like how he went out in Rise.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I had an issue with the fact that he was in the movie at all, because otherwise, what was the point of 1 through 6 with Anakin's sacrifice? Like,
yeah.
If anything, bring in someone else. I don't know who else, but not Palpatine. The story was supposed to be over.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with it. They had to drop a book to kind of like duct tape some crevices. I don't know if you've read Shadow of the Sith, but
yeah, wasn't it like he had some operations thing where, like, he was making a bunch of clones of himself and tried to make a body capable of absorbing his Force essence, so while he was falling down the shaft, or
he gave himself to the Force as he was falling down. and he had that contingency plan. It ended up being a solid book. It gave a lot of background to Luke. It told the story of Rey's parents, who were like very, very cool. I love Rey's parents.
Yeah, wasn't one of them Palpatine's son or whatever?
Yeah, his quote unquote son. He was a strand cast. The only there were 18 clones of Palpatine made with like strand casting, and he was the only one that survived because he was the only one that wasn't Force sensitive. And rather than killing him, they kept him around just in case they wanted to reuse his DNA. But then he escaped, went to this, I don't remember what the planet was called, but he went to a off-world planet and met Rey's mother at a place that they worked together. They sat down, had lunch together, fell in love, moved her away. They moved to Jakku where they could be safe. They had Rey, and then they were kind of just on the run for years. They had to leave their home and just avoid these bounty hunters that the Sith were trying to track down, because once they got word that Rey was born, they wanted to take Rey, since she then had the most, not pure, but like the more special variant of the DNA. So they're
Force sensitive variant.
Yep. And they were trying to track down Rey, and they ended up dying to Ochi of Bestoon, which we see in episode 9. But it's a good story, but they had the point of it is they had to do a lot of duct taping to make the ship stay afloat. Whereas if they simply made it where Rey was like a Kenobi, I think it works out a little better. And that, I think, was the original plan.
If he was a Kenobi, well, okay, don't get me wrong. Like, I do think that if you're going to introduce a big bad or whatever that's the descendant of Anakin Skywalker, you're going to need a lot of training to even stand toe-to-toe with this guy, let alone to actually beat him.
Mm-hmm.
So, if she was a Kenobi, and she was... So, I don't know how much you know into the prequels or whatever. I'd assume quite a bit because, you know, you grew up with all this or whatever. But if you were related to Kenobi, Kenobi wasn't naturally gifted as a Jedi in any way, shape, or form.
No.
So, if you compare his natural abilities to Anakin's natural abilities, for example, the descendant of Anakin would just clean house, honestly. And given that he had trained under Luke, he had trained under Snoke, who supposedly was Palpatine, versus Rey, who just kind of picked up a lightsaber and slashed him. I don't know, that it would almost make less sense if she was a Kenobi.
I've had this, I get what you mean. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was coming home from work, as I was listening to the audiobook. Firstly, because I used to play basketball at a very high level. And, oh, thank you, Jack, for the super chat, man. Much appreciated, bro. As a basketball player, I do a lot of open pickup games and stuff, and there's always people who aren't good that do good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer of any man with two hands has a fighting chance. So you could simply get lucky, and I think it wasn't just Rey fighting then either. It was Rey and the Force, because she had the Force with her. And, you know, the will of the Force is always going to enact upon itself. You take that into account. You take into account that Kylo was injured. You know, he got shot in the ribs. He was bleeding really badly.
Yeah, but if he's using the dark side, wouldn't the pain and hatred help boost his powers?
That's the thing, like,
Exactly.
Typically it would, but he wasn't as open to the dark side as a typical Sith would be. He was more like a Biff from Back to the Future, where he was just a big show off. And that's a perfect example of that is when he's talking to Lor Santeca and he's like, oh, I'll show you the dark side. Whereas that's just him being kind of angry. He's not using the dark side of the Force. He's not, you know, encapsulated by the dark side of
the old guy.
Yeah.
At Force Awakens.
Yeah. And he was one of Luke's like greatest friends, as Lor Santeca was a high member of the Church of the Force. So they weren't Force sensitives, but they were people that really believed in the Force and studied the Force and stuff. So he knew Ben when he was a little teenager. So he knew Ben up until the moment that he died. So that's why that was such a momentous part too. And it's kind of also explained when Snoke tells Kylo, come to me, we will finish your training. Because he really wasn't fully trained in the dark side. He was more so just enacting his will rather than the will of the dark side of the Force. Gotcha. And he never does fully become a Sith, which is why
Star Wars Prodigy.
We got Star Wars Prodigy in the chat.
We have Star Wars Prodigy in the chat.
Hell yeah. How we doing though, chat? We got how many we got? We got 5 in my chat.
Still streaming. Because a lot of people from Theory streams generally tend to come to mine at some point, but if he's still streaming, I highly doubt it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Kylo never truly made that. No, you're good, man. He never made that switch to becoming a full-fledged Sith, which is why it frustrated him, because there was so much available that he could unlock and become more powerful, but he was being held back because Snoke was his own sentient being. He was literally just being like manipulated by Palpatine. So Snoke had his own thoughts, his own beliefs,
right,
his own actions, but it was like Palpatine was playing him on a video game from a certain point of view. And Snoke didn't think that Kylo was ready to become the heir of the dark side, heir of the Sith. And that's what he did on purpose. He would hold him back on purpose because he knew all he wanted to do was be the next Darth Vader. That's all Kylo wanted to do. And
yeah, Star Wars Prodigy just said, well, Kylo was never trained as a Sith anyway, so
exactly. He was due to be, but because he was so impatient and he was so scared and he feared being alone so much, he turned on Snoke and killed him, and was hoping that Rey would join him because he was just so scared. And all he wanted to do was, you know, just return to who he was, but he just didn't know how to do it. And you finally see that story arc of him culminate in episode 9, where he loses his dad in episode 7. He loses his uncle and his masters in episode 8. And then in episode 9, he loses his mom, and he realized, holy shit, like, I am alone. This isn't right. And then he talks to his father, and he finally makes the turn back to the light, so he can at least be with Rey, the one person that always saw good in him, which I loved as a story because it mirrors Luke and Vader, how Luke always saw good in Vader, no matter what, where everyone in the galaxy was afraid of Kylo Ren, and they were afraid of the First Order and afraid of the Knights of Ren. But Rey, she didn't really hesitate because she saw in her vision that she took his hand, Ben's hand. And I think that foresight of Rey would have made so much sense if she was a Kenobi, because Obi-Wan had instances of having that same foresight. But obviously, like you said, he wasn't as powerful. I think that the will of the Force is to always remain in balance. And it's not balance as in 50-50 balance. It's balance as in the light is all that there is, and there is no darkness. Because the dark side of the Force, not to get uber nerdy here, but is manipulating the Force. It is using the Force.
Not the point of the stream? He's super nerdy.
And that works. That works. But the dark side of the Force is manipulating it and bending it and twisting its will, whereas the light side of the Force is letting the Force be at peace and going as the Force wishes. And that's truly what balance is.
Hold up. I just realized our stream is private. What? How?
Is it not on public?
Oh wait, Waffles is in the chat. Okay, cool. What's up, Waffles?
What up, Waffles?
He's from no, it ain't. Okay, sorry, I was looking at your messages from Discord where you had said that the stream was private. So I was really confused, but yeah, how's it going, Waffles?
Shout out Waffles. We'll plug his channel.
Tried to hop in through the link you sent me, but it said it was private. Oh yeah, wait. Yeah, it was because the audio wasn't working, so I had to just restart the stream. And then after a while, ended up talking with Sotico, and we decided to go live after about 45 minutes of him teaching me how to use OBS. So thank you for that, by the way. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's all good, man.
How old are you, if I may ask?
26.
26? Oh,
yeah.
You're the same age as my older brother, actually. That's dope.
Yeah, just graduated college. Trying to find my way in the universe, you know?
Oh, for sure. But the one in Siri Talks was good. Okay, perfect. I'm glad to see you, Waffles.
Yeah, shout out Waffles.
Well, like 2 days. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I was curious because, like, for me, I would have been 2 when Revenge of the Sith came out.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I was into Star Wars, I wouldn't have remembered anything. I doubt I would have even been taken to the theater because 2 years old. You know?
Yeah, I think I was like 7 when it came out.
You would have been. You would have been 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Well, are you almost 27, or are you?
No, I turned 26 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so you're about 5-ish years older than me, because I'll be 21 in February.
Okay.
Yeah. Star Wars Prodigy says, "I'm back, boys. Welcome back, Star Wars Prodigy." Waffle says, "Yes, sir."
To wrap up, like the.
Oh yeah, of course.
To wrap up the Kylo chat, essentially, I view the sequels as a piece of art that is just it's falling apart, right? There's something there, there's substance there to be had, but in and of itself, I think Kylo Ren literally drives the sequels, and he carries them on his back. But I am a prequels guy. Prequels, originals, like I'm the biggest Anakin fan west of the Mississippi. I love Anakin Skywalker. I love Luke Skywalker.
Are you sure about that?
100%, man. 100%.
Maybe I'm the biggest Anakin fan. Maybe Theory's in Canada, so yeah. I guess it's between us.
Theory. I live like 30 minutes from Theory. 40 minutes.
Wait, so are you in Canada too?
I'm in Seattle, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
I drive fast.
So, Waffles, I pretty much agree with you. I'll go on a side tangent real quick. So Waffles says, honestly, I've just checked out of Star Wars because of what Disney has done. So to be perfectly honest, like I was talking to Sotico about earlier, I had gotten into Star Wars with The Force Awakens just because I was never really interested prior. I thought it was cool with all like the guns and the lightsabers and stuff, but I didn't know enough to really know what was going on. And then I went back and watched like Revenge of the Sith, and that was when I was like, okay, so this is what feels like genuine Star Wars. And I watched just 1 through 6, and then I'm like, okay, that's my type of Star Wars. But then when the shows started coming out, like I've been subscribed to theories since I was about 14 years old, but other than when he did his casting call for Vader 1, I just kind of dropped off the map as far as theory goes, just because someone else got the parts I had auditioned for, and then he cut out pieces that I would have been auditioning for. So at that point, I was like, yeah, whatever. But I started a channel a few years ago. It was called Star Wars Arcade. It got about 1,000 subscribers or so. But then Kenobi came out, and I had seen kind of where Star Wars was at that point, and I'm like, I don't have the passion for Star Wars anymore to make a full channel out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Ahsoka came out, and it's like, you know what? Theory has successfully made almost 3,000 videos. There's plenty of other YouTubers that have made thousands of videos about Star Wars. And I'm really into like Stargate too. I'm really into Game of Thrones. Like there is plenty of content across different fandoms that I can find joy enough to make a channel on. So here we are, trying this again.
Oh yeah.
Waffles also says, "Bro, I'm like right next to you. Let's go." So are you right next to me, or are you right next to Stotico? Probably you, actually, because I don't think I said where I live.
Yeah, Waffles, bro. If you're right next to me, man, we gotta. You know what I mean? I'm down.
Oh, Tico. Yeah. Okay,
Hell yeah.
fair enough.
Hell yeah.
You guys are both in Seattle. I'm in the state right below you guys.
I've been telling Theory for a minute he needs to do like a Seattle meetup, because it's only like, I think he lives in Vancouver, so it's only like 50 minutes to an hour drive. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. And there's some places up in
like live
like.
with Theory, so I guess we can't all get what we want.
One day, man. One day he'll see this. See how dope we are. But yeah, I have
sorry, what was that?
Oh no, it's all good. What's up, Waffles?
Waffles had said group meet up with you and Theory for real.
Oh yeah, that'd be tight. I've got I forgot when I bought this. I think it was sometime last year. But I had to own it. It's Anakin's Graflex. It's the real name is the Skinny Flex for it, and I had to have it. I think I'm only gonna buy like maybe 3 other lightsabers, and that would be Luke's, Vader's, and then that's maybe about it. Probably just Luke's and Vader's. I'm a big Skywalker geek, bro. I'm a Skywalker stan. Rey, my favorite. Are you kidding me? I love me some Rey Skywalker. I have a reoccurring meme on my channels that Rey Skywalker is the most powerful Jedi of all time. There's a little bit of truth to it, but at the same time, it is just a meme because, in my estimations, Annie Bobani is the GOAT. And I just did
Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one.
Yeah, exactly. And you can interpret the chosen one prophecy however you want. I follow the interpretation of Qui-Gon, the guy that literally studied it for decades, and I wholeheartedly think the chosen one is Anakin. I know there's a lot of people that are in the Luke camp. There's a minority that are in the Rey camp. There's a smaller minority that's in the Kylo camp, but
Waffles bring back the Darth Jar Jar.
I got a video in the works for Darth Jar Jar. I got a video in the works.
As I got a dip now, boys. Just wanted to drop in and say hi. Have a good stream and a good rest of your night. Thanks, you too, Star Wars Prodigy. Thanks for dropping in. I appreciate that.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Waffle says, I have an own saber duelist lightsaber. That's awesome, man.
Which lightsaber?
I'm not sure. Annie, Nad, Darth Jar Jar, yes sir, let's go. Darth Jar Jar vid goes hard.
Oh yeah.
Alright, that's it.
I'm hella down for it.
I mean, honestly, same. I mean, no one can be that clumsy if they tried. It's gotta just because he was the Sith Lord this entire time. He was Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis wasn't Amun. It was Darth Jar Jar the whole time. Then when Palpatine eventually took over the Senate and Jar Jar was still around, he was like, now I will bide my time.
Own a saber, Wrathbearer.
The sequels come out at some point, and it turns out that Snoke wasn't the mastermind, Palpatine wasn't the mastermind. Jar Jar's just kind of old, but he's like, at last I shall reveal myself.
I still sure he's the I don't think that he's the mastermind, simply because
that was just a fan fiction I came up with off the top of my head.
Oh, for sure, and I love that. I love that. But I think Jar Jar is ahead of Palpatine. He's in charge of Palpatine, because you never see Jar Jar after Order 66 because he goes into hiding. He's piecing together his empire. Palpatine is just the face of it. And I think that there's someone above Jar Jar. I think the rule of two is just a thing to throw off the Jedi. Like, you think there's only two of us? Nah. It's 2 times 2. There's 4 of us. 2 squared.
Even with the rule of two, Count Dooku had thought that the whole purpose of trying to test Anakin in Revenge of the Sith was to make a Sith army, not to figure out if Anakin's a worthy replacement of Dooku.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is very possible, because even in Phantom Menace, I think it was oh yeah, Waffles, we'll get to that in just a second. In Phantom Menace, I'm pretty sure Plagueis would have still been alive, which would have meant that there would be Darth Maul, Palpatine, and Plagueis all at once.
Yeah, Plagueis was alive up through Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And
then
apparently Plagueis visited Anakin at some point too, which was crazy.
And then in Attack of the Clones, since Maul somehow survived getting slashed in half because of the dark side, there would have been Maul, Palpatine, Dooku. And then in Revenge of the Sith, since Maul would still be alive, it would now be Maul, Palpatine, Dooku, and eventually Darth Vader.
Yep.
I mean...
And if you think about Jar Jar being up top, also Jar Jar.
There you go.
Because how often does all, like, so much happen like that? Like, I think there is a serious theory there. Because you never see him afterwards.
Yeah, there easily could be. The out-of-universe explanation being he didn't exist yet, but the in-universe explanation being he's planning something.
Exactly.
Waffles says, I put a link up there that said, own Saber Wrathbearer, but it might not have gone through. Somebody says, hi, what's up, somebody?
What up, somebody? What up, Braden?
Braden says, I have arrived.
Have you ever seen Jar Jar and Palpatine in the same room? Only during the Senate, right? Only during the Senate, where he's given him the emergency powers.
Aha! I recommend we give all emergency powers to Chancellor Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
That was his line, right? Oh, no, I haven't seen the prequels in a while.
Something of that nature, verbatim. Yeah. It could have been a hologram.
Trust.
I like fun theories like that. I also like the serious ones. Theories are fun. I'm working on a video right now, which is since we're on the talk of the prequels and Revenge of the Sith, what would happen if Mace Windu joined Palpatine? As opposed to going to strike him down.
I still think that Palpatine would attempt to seduce Anakin to the dark side. If anything, there would probably be 2 extra Sith. So, like, if we were going with the assumption that there is only 2 currently, and at this point, since Dooku's been decapitated at this point by Anakin, I think that it would be Mace and Palpatine trying to execute Order 66 while Anakin's kind of on their side. So either Anakin would be told to stay out of it, or if he was seduced enough to the dark side, maybe just have all three. I think they'd have a better chance of taking out Yoda and maybe Obi-Wan. But then I still can't see a world where if they are going to abide by the rule of two, I don't see any world where Mace would be prioritized over Anakin. Because Anakin at his maximum potential would have just freaking annihilated everyone. So I still think that ultimately Mace would be killed somehow in some way.
For sure.
To give Anakin the spot.
Yeah, for sure. There is like just the talk that even Palpatine acknowledged that Windu was, and of course this is just him prodding Anakin, saying that Windu's more powerful and he's a better Jedi because he's a Grand Master at that point. So
right.
It would make sense why Windu hated Anakin, because say he was working with Palpatine the whole time, well, all Palpatine talks about is this Anakin Skywalker kid. And maybe that's why he just fucking hates the kid. I think if Windu joined Palpatine, I don't know if Anakin joins them. Simply because...
Really?
Yeah, simply because of their rivalry, which... It's a 13-year-old rivalry. Ever since he's a little kid, Windu's hated the kid. And growing
That's
up,
true.
when you have such like hatred towards something, you hate it for the rest of your life. So I think he would have hated Windu enough to disregard Palpatine and kind of like, oh, okay, so this is why I was held back. Because of you. Not because of my ability or anything, but because you were threatened by me. And that's kind of where my theory goes with it.
Yeah, but since Anakin's also so emotionally unstable in general, I would almost think that that would fuel his frustrations harder and therefore push him actually deeper towards the dark side. Because I mean, I don't think in any point when he was under Palpatine's rule as Darth Vader, I don't think there was any point that he particularly liked Palpatine either. Palpatine would literally torture the dude even though he already lost all his limbs and got roasted. So the way that I see it, it would almost come across as like the fact that Anakin and Mace hate each other and have hated each other for 13 years, that's a very strong emotion of the dark side in itself, where even though they might hate each other, it might actually build off of each other in like a negative multiplication problem in math, right? Where like you get a positive result by mutual hatred.
Yeah.
Always trying to one up the other because Mace feels threatened by Anakin. Anakin feels like Mace is taking all the power, all the glory, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And it adds to the context too that by Revenge of the Sith, like Anakin is dead set on leaving the Jedi altogether because he finds out very early in the movie, dude's about to become a father. He's about to have a kid.
Yeah.
And he can't do that on Coruscant. He can't do that while being a Jedi. So he really has one of two choices in his present mind: either stay the course and stay in hiding, or move to Naboo and be happy and leave the Jedi. And you get that context with his conversations with Ahsoka. Like, you have no idea how much I get what you mean by it's hard to leave the Jedi, but he wants to. If Order 66 doesn't happen, if Palpatine gets turned in, I still think Anakin goes on to leave the Jedi. At that point in time, there's really nothing left for him to learn, light side wise.
Well, he's also terrified of losing Padme.
For sure, yeah. And he just has this overall fear of loss, and I think he would want to get away from everything that was driving those fears. Like, you gotta remember, he was a 19-year-old kid when he was thrown in to war. Hey, you're a general now. Like, you're not a commander, not a lieutenant. You're a fucking general. And for 4 years, he spent fighting a war, leading a war.
Yeah, given that I'm literally not even 21 yet, I could not imagine being a war general, but all right, fair enough.
Nah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
you gotta fight in this war, you gotta command all these troops. They will live and die by your orders, even though you're still legally a kid, I guess, at least as far as the US goes.
Yeah, and imagine for 13 years being told, you are the one that is going to bring balance to all of this. You're the one that's going to save the galaxy. You are the one that is going to end the war. Like, pressure upon pressure. Unbelievable results of those pressures, you know. The Republic won the war in the end, all thanks to Anakin. But what makes me just the most sad is that no one stopped and asked Anakin how he was doing. You know? Imagine all that going on, and at the same time, he has a secret relationship with a senator, a very famous senator, and they find out that they're having a kid together. All that culminates at once, and within the span of learning that he's having a kid, up until, what, 2 or 3 days later, the Republic falls, you know? So...
Yep.
It's tough, it's tricky, and that's why Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie of all time, but it's my least watched Star Wars film because it's so hard for me to sit through, because every moment I'm just like, why isn't anyone doing anything about this, you know? And the whole time you wish that something differently was going to happen every single time you watch it. But in the end, it always ends in tragedy. It's so sad. It's so sad.
Sure.
That's why I can watch Attack of the Clones, man. I can watch Attack of the Clones all day. But Revenge of the Sith, man, maybe twice a year. Maybe twice a year. Because it's just so hard.
So Waffle said hello to Timmy. Timmy's like, what's up? Chilling. Zam came back.
What up, Zam? Welcome back. Timmy the Nipple is here.
Yep. Waffles says, I ate 4 loaded enchiladas and I'm completely out of it, bro. Yeah, honestly, I would be too. I get that. Timmy just says, just listening and playing Yakuza.
Very good game.
I'm not entirely sure what that is. Okay, fair enough. I wouldn't know. Big Paws Banana says, Waffles made me come here. Well, welcome to the stream. I appreciate it. Maybe consider subscribing. That'd be dope.
Hell yeah.
Maybe subscribe to Sotika as well. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we're live on my channel as well.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Everything.com/Sotico. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, and Kick right now. Yeah.
I'm just live on YouTube. Cool.
Episode 15 of the Archives podcast. How we doing? So, and hit that like button, 100%. 100p.
Yeah, 100p. Like button. Let's see. What? Mine only has 8 likes. That's unfortunate.
Hey, bro, that's 8 people that like the stream. That's a W.
I guess. That's a good point.
Yeah, shout out to you guys, man. Let's see if we can't hit.
Yeah,
see if we can't hit 10.
Let's go.
We got what? 5 likes over on my stream. We got 7 viewers altogether.
Like them, guys.
Appreciate you all.
I'm just kidding. It's not a competition. I'm kidding.
So if you were to create it can be a TV show or a movie, predicated around a character or a time period or a story from scratch, what would you do? Who would star in it, and what would the story be?
Am I able to erase things and move things around, or is it leave everything exactly as is?
Exactly how things are.
Ah, shit. I don't know, because for me personally, I would just redo Kenobi, but actually be true to the characters, because even with how Disney has treated Star Wars as a brand. When I heard that Kenobi was coming out, I was like, okay, this is going to be the one that if Disney is going to succeed at something, it's going to be this one. It's about Darth Vader, it's about Obi-Wan, it's about Luke, it's about Leia.
Mm-hmm.
I would honestly just redo the show myself.
See, for me, we can talk about the Kenobi show if you want to. For me,
of course,
the Kenobi show was more impactful than I even imagined, because I get a lot of it was filler. I get the Reva thing happened. People didn't want Reva to exist, and I get that, and I accept that. But what the Kenobi show did for me was highlight, exemplify, and enhance A New Hope. In A New Hope, you see Obi-Wan Kenobi with Luke and Leia at the same time on the same ship, and they get sucked into the Death Star by the tractor beam. He has to go shut it down. On the way back from there, he runs into Darth Vader. He runs into Anakin. He then gives his life. He sacrifices himself so that Luke and Leia don't get captured. He literally sacrifices his own life to save his best friend's kids. And the Kenobi show brought all that context together and wrapped that all around my head. Like, he is literally...
Let's go.
We got...
Sorry, my channel just got its first ever super chat.
No, hell yeah,
Thank
man.
you, Timmy. I appreciate that.
Not just that, but we're at
my channel's first ever super chat. Let's go.
You got 11 likes as well.
Okay, I'll take it.
Hell yeah.
Hey, dude.
Yes, I just think
YouTube take 30 cents of it, I think, but yep, just got my channel's first super chat. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll take it. Yeah, I just think the Kenobi show was very important, but I know it didn't tell the story that everyone else wanted them to tell. But
Timmy said he had to leave. Hey, thank you for the $5, Waffles. I appreciate it.
Waffles with a $5? Hell yeah.
Thank you. He said balls. That's it. Okay. Well, I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you. The one thing I do need to ask, though, is who is going to be... bye, Timmy. Yeah, have a good one, Timmy. Thanks for the 99 cents, and thanks for joining the stream. What I gotta ask, though, is who is going to be the channel's first join member?
It's a solid question.
Because, I mean, we already got the channel's first super chat, but who's going to be the channel's first join member? The cheapest one's 99 cents. So, I mean, you know.
That's true.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
And that's a smart thing to do. Yeah, I had to fight. Like, when the join stuff came out for the first time, the lowest that it gave me was $5, and I had to like literally fight YouTube to get a $2.99, and then like a month later they brought out the option for the 99-cent one, and they really weren't trying to let me have it, but
yeah,
I luckily I did, because 99 cents is so much more affordable than $5 in the at the end of the day.
Right.
It's so much more affordable, especially for like college kids, high school kids, people who, anybody really. I mean, we're going through a fucking recession. Times are tough. It's the holidays.
Dude, why do you think I'm focusing more on my channel? Like, I have a passion for it, sure, but I'm in college right now in the middle of what's going to be a recession.
Yeah. But hey, man, I mean, you got to appreciate folks that even... just show up, hit that like button, subscribe, leave comments.
I do appreciate you guys.
I
do appreciate you guys.
That stuff that moves the needle, that kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day, like you said, we're all just a bunch of nerds, and we're all just sitting here talking about Star Wars. So,
for real.
Have you got anything else?
Yeah, I'm curious actually on a total side tangent. Or how long do you have?
I got like 14 more minutes.
14. I have something specific at 7
Yeah.
my time. That's cool. Have you ever gotten into Stargate?
No.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not a big TV show person.
That's fair.
I'm big into films. I much prefer movies. I like the artistry of movies. I've enjoyed, but I've never outwardly sought out a TV show just because I don't like how it's filmed, how it's written. I don't like the 30 to 45-minute episode lengths. I prefer my story to be told in a nice, like 2 to 3 hour clip, start, finish.
Nice and concise, right?
Exactly. And I think that comes from me being, I used to do theater when I was younger, and you tell the story start to finish, whereas TV shows, they drag you out. The only TV show that I've really thoroughly enjoyed from Star Wars Disney would have been Clone Wars, Rebels, Andor, Obi-Wan. But I enjoyed Obi-Wan for the wrong reasons, because it was nostalgic. Andor I loved every minute of. It was like the best, and like to me Andor's the best TV show that I've ever seen. It's better than Breaking Bad in my opinion. But Book of Boba Fett was tough. I'm not a big Mandalorian fan. I just don't like TV shows. I'm a movie guy, so it's tough for me to then go outside of an IP that I like to explore a new IP, such as Stargate. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I liked Clone Wars for what it was. I'm watching it, or I'm not watching it yet. I have to finish Attack of the Clones because I'm doing a chronological watch through. But I'm going to watch it in order this time through, and then I'll assess it. But I love the clones for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry if I was a little distracted, by the way. One of Theory's mods was texting me real quick.
Oh, you're good, man.
Cool. All right, we're good. Sorry, I was distracted for a sec. Let's see what was happening in the chat.
And Darth Auspicious says Andor was good. It was just long and boring. And that's kind of my point with TV. I don't like how it's written because they have to space it out.
Said it was mid. I understand.
Yeah, I get both sides of the coin. Just like I get people that outwardly will not watch the sequels. I get people who won't watch the prequels. And I get people that won't watch the originals. I get it.
Oh. So there was a channel called Swappin' Thoughts that decided to interview me the other day, and he was basically asking like just different questions, my takes on Star Wars and all that other stuff. And one of the things that came up was just like people who didn't like the prequels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, I think, was because of like Hayden Christensen's acting. Now, personally, I think he did a great job, but there were certain people that like didn't like his acting, didn't think that he looked like they would have expected Anakin Skywalker to look. But what I pointed out on that podcast was basically like, how would you know what a 20-year-old version of Anakin Skywalker would look like, considering that when you saw him take the mask off, he had been burned, he had been sliced up, he had, lived in the suit for 20-something years at that point. How would you really have known what 20-year-old healthy Anakin Skywalker would have looked like?
Yeah, and that comes to something that I always say. I think that there's a line between being a critic and being a fan, and that line's getting very blurry these days. And people just need to stop trying to be film critics when they're not. Like you can,
for sure.
You can enjoy something, you can not like something, but don't pretend like you know. Like I watched somebody sit there and say, "Oh, he's whiny, he's angry, he's antsy." His mother was just beaten, raped, and pillaged by sand people whom he then slaughtered, and then she died in his arms. Are you not going to be angry? Are you going to be happy-go-lucky? Like, I just don't understand how people can't see these perspectives of characters sometimes, man. Like, his mom died in his arms, and people are mad that he's upset about it. And right. I, like you, I think Hayden did a great job.
Far, but that was to show, like, the hints of Vader. Like, you know the name Anakin Skywalker from the original trilogy. So when you're looking at young Anakin, you already should be keeping in mind, like, because people will go like, yeah, well, he lashed out, he killed the men, the women, and the children. And it's like, you are looking at the dude who in a few years will be Vader.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing hints of Vader appearing. This isn't unexpected.
No. Because you've seen it happen. And I think
You've seen what he turns into.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I just don't get how people don't put two and two together. That's why I discredit and I disregard those opinions. Sure, they can have them, but ultimately, like, you're not looking at the story at that point. You're just looking at an opinion and trying to make it seem more valid than it is by discrediting someone's acting, when in reality, you can't perceive their acting because you don't understand it. You don't have the complexity to grasp what emotions he's trying to evoke. He is literally evoking the dark side of the Force and slaughtering an entire tribe of sand people out of revenge because they assaulted, beat, and raped his mother to death. You know?
Right. I mean, sure, most rational people will look at the things that Anakin did and be like, okay, you know what? Like, most people, if their mother died in their arms, they wouldn't just go on a murder spree and kill everyone. Because most rational people are like, you know, killing people's bad. Like, I'd go to jail, this and that, whatever the reason may be. Because obviously that's not a good thing to do in any way, shape, or form, right?
Mm-hmm.
But first off, this is fantasy. This isn't real life. Second off, you've seen what Darth Vader becomes in the original trilogy already. So keeping that context in mind, this is not a rational dude.
No.
I mean, he can be, sure, but...
He's smart, he's tactical, but in the moment, he's irrational and he's erratic. And you see that literally from the point where he's a child and he jets off into the sky in an N1 starfighter and he says, we're here, fuck it, let's fight.
Yeah.
So I love Anakin, man. He's my favorite character for a reason, and I think pound for pound, the 6 movies predicated to his character, I sincerely think he's the greatest character in the history of cinema. I don't think there's anyone that comes close to Anakin. And it's very nice to get to see that redemption upon his character. Because you know the entire... Exactly. And I'm with you on that. And you know the entire time that he is Vader, that Anakin is still in there. And that's also why I like the Kenobi show, because it gave you that contrast. Like, Anakin's still in here, but the hatred of Vader is going to trump it for the time being. Because at the time of Kenobi, he doesn't know that he has kids. When he finds, like, you can literally see the switch in Vader in Empire Strikes Back when he learns that Luke is his son. You can literally see the switch in him and his demeanor and his actions. He goes from a bloodthirsty killmonger to he wants to become a father again. And he wants his son with him. He doesn't want his son with him for the wrong reasons. He wants his son with him to finally get rid of this weight that Palpatine has put on him and get rid of Palpatine once and for all. Which you could say is for the wrong reasons, but...
Yeah, he still wanted to use the dark side and rule the galaxy under an iron fist, but he wanted to do it with his son.
Exactly. Whereas Palpatine... who you gotta fucking, like, clap. You gotta appreciate. Wanted Luke to then replace Vader. So... George Lucas wrote a fucking masterpiece. God bless him.
For real. Also, Darth Autisticus. I think I got it right. Said, I think people just thought differently at the time, but I think it's like the media made it seem worse than what everyone actually thought. I heard half the people liked the prequels in theaters. Yeah, a lot of people liked the sequels in theaters. Like, even Star Wars Theory at first used to like the sequels when they were coming out. Like, he had been making videos on, like, you know what, sure, this didn't give us all the answers, but I think this is Disney's vision and blah, blah, blah. But then when he saw the final product, he was like, no, this was not for me. So then I don't, yeah, I mean, people used to like the prequel, or not the prequels, the sequels, but then they look back on it and more people than not, I'm not saying everyone, more people than not generally tend to not like the sequels because they see the completed product and they're like, from start to finish, none of the points that we thought were going to be addressed were addressed in a way that felt respectful to the characters.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately circles back to I just don't know how big of fans that they were. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because how would you know what Anakin would be like in his early 20s? How would you know what the Jedi would be like in the prequel era?
Yeah, I just don't think you would know. I don't know. You need a lot of context, and you really, like, that's when you really need to sit down and plan these things out. And maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but I just don't see a whole lot of planning that went into these sequels, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you can't win them all. You can't win them all. At the end of the day, they were what they were, but what they were, I appreciate. I think you can view them differently if you simply just look at the sequels and think that Kylo Ren's the main character. If you do that, head and shoulders, I think it's a better story. But I'm not going to sit here try and change people's minds because I want people
Not me neither.
Yeah, I want people to look at art and have their own opinion on it and go from there. So,
yeah.
all right,
I mean,
buddy.
we live in a world
I've got to
already as
run,
is,
but feel free to carry on streaming if you'd like.
Sounds good. Just out of curiosity, and I know we're on stream, but how do I get it back to where it's just me?
On OBS, just click the eye on the window capture.
Okay, so to get to window capture, you go back to file, right?
No, just in the sources.
Oh wait, window capture here. Keep the eye. Okay, I might have just disappeared.
And then you just gotta, from your task manager, close Discord and then put your camera back on the video.
So task manager, shut off Discord.
Yep.
Task manager. I don't know that Discord's even still. What? Why isn't Discord on here? I don't even know that Discord's on here right now. What? Yeah, I'm not seeing Discord on here.
What you could also do is just click your camera when I leave for the time being.
Oh wait, actually, I think I may have an idea. What if I just went Alt and then I just did that?
Yeah. Because when I leave, it'll just put yours in the middle as well.
Right. Yeah.
I appreciate you all, chat. Much love.